The victims of genocide and other human rights abuses deserve justice. They may have lost their husbands and daughters, they might have lost their homes, and even if they don't exhibit the outward scars of physical violence, they have psychological scars. But what happens when no one will take those harms seriously? What happens when societies turn their backs on those victims? I want to flip the switch, and my research is concerned with figuring out how to make those societies care. After conflict and atrocity, the kind of justice that is normally put in place is something called transitional justice. And people like me are interested in confronting the past legacies of human rights abuses and in putting in place stable, peaceful, and democratic futures for those countries. All of that needs to take place against a backdrop that includes things like peace building and development, the kinds of things that will put communities back together again. But what happens when the conflict affects only a small portion of that population? What happens when the conflict has taken place in some small, far-flung corner of that country? What happens when people are told half-truths or even misled entirely about what has taken place? It can be very difficult, if not impossible, to garner the kind of political will that is needed to get governments to put in place mechanisms of transitional justice that will help those communities to heal and to get justice for those victims. Now, the kinds of things that are normally put in place are trials, criminal trials, compensation processes, and even truth and reconciliation commissions like the kind we've had here in Canada to deal with the residential schools question. The most important thing that needs to happen is for communities to understand the truth about what has taken place. And while that might seem like the easiest thing in the world to do, it turns out that people are not super receptive to hearing that truth. People may have been told that that guy over there is an animal, or that that community is responsible for bringing on the genocide themselves. Telling the truth can be a very difficult thing, but it doesn't have to be. It can take place through things like everyday media broadcasts and so on. But the most surprising thing that the research has uncovered is that people don't need to be converted to be all the way champions of victims of conflict in order to do something. They simply need to understand the basic truth about what has taken place. Thanks very much.